I will say there was one moment, and I will never forget it, where we had Marianne Bridgewater in here. Well, the question was, I don't know, how many times a week do you eat out or something? and I think you said 12. And we were like, what? Like, we
was
could
Marianne
not.
Also shocked? We're
Yes,
both of you just like,
her jaw dropped. We were like, how?
Is it on film?
Is that we weren't filming at that time, which is a bummer because we both were like, there was a full pause where we were like processing the information. We were like, 12 times a week?
But I will say this. This is what I stand by. If you are looking for love, I think there are a list of restaurants that we can tell people where just guys tend to eat.
Oh,
like men.
Guys to eat? What?
Guys. There are restaurants we'll go into. It's like mostly guys, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, like La Madeleine. And,
yeah, exactly. La Madeleine. Which is the one over here, right here by West to you.
Girly
filled
restaurant.
with men.
It's such a girly restaurant.
It's the 5.
That soap is good. Soap.
Which is the one
You eat the soap. Go to the bathroom. All you can get it for
soap is great.
But you can tell,
It's
like, when you
free.
walk into a restaurant that has a good meal, they've got a lot of food, it's a good deal. Men.
I mean, I feel
All
like
the guys are
Chipotle is
there.
a pretty classic guy dude restaurant for like, they want their
I've
protein.
become friends with a lot of them on Main Street. Sometimes they give me my meal free.
You go
all
to
the time.
Chipotle on Main Street?
Ashley, that
Yes.
is where you need to get, is
And
to
they
get people
give me-
comping your meal.
They call me Queen Ashley. Actually, when I come in, they're like, Queen. I'm not even kidding. Bella and Audrey have both witnessed it. And they're
Listen.
and they'll
That's
give me hugs.
awesome.
There are a few things that feel better than a restaurant becoming like a regular where they'll comp you sometimes or give you something free.
I
or
actually
add something
started feeling
extra.
bad that I would go into the other Chipotle because I was like, y'all are so sweet, but
No,
like
take
listen.
advantage.
Or I'll buy a cheese quesadilla, so I buy something like on the app,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
just get the bowl.
Oh
You
my
know, I went to
gosh.
Five Guys.
What a problem.
Five Guys burgers, which I love their burgers. I
Yeah.
love Five Guys.
They're $3,000 a piece.
They may be, but
so
they're delicious.
expensive.
But I remember this gentleman was in the back and he's like, hey, I make my own onion rings. You want to try one? And I'm like,
Wait, was
Absolutely.
he in the back behind
he
the
was
restaurant?
one of the cooks
Oh,
that
he
was
worked
just
there.
making his own thing up back there. And
Okay.
he's like, hey, you want to try an onion ring? I'm like,
Was it good?
absolutely, I do. And so he fed me an onion
I
ring.
love how many
Fed
fries
you.
they give you.
Really?
Listen,
He didn't like feed it
I was like,
like a bird.
open up, baby.
listen. The fry
Romance?
order,
Yeah,
at
Andy,
Five
don't
Guys
know.
is so good. Like
It's
there's so many,
delicious.
and they're just delicious.
It is delicious. Have you eaten these fries? They're
I haven't
so
had
good.
Five Guys.
in your life. That's unfortunate. It is a good chain.
So I guess I am at 9.
Great.
Eating out 9 times
Now,
a week.
all that to say, you eat out less than
Let's
you
get
used
started.
to, and I'm proud of you. And I'm proud of you.
Maybe we start the show.
Maybe we should. Hello, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network. Hosted by Jennifer Dennis and produced by me, Justin Kello, we're a podcast that was supposed to be focused on parenting, but we've kind of lost the plot along the way. Honestly, we don't know what this podcast is about, but we talk to incredible people who love Jesus, and our hope is to provide encouragement and fun whenever possible. If our lack of clear direction bothers you, we apologize, but no one is making you listen to this podcast, unless you're married to Jennifer. Andy, thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast. Thank you for joining us today. It's going to be a fun discussion today, and you must know Justin is running the show today.
Kind of, yeah. We are in a season where Jennifer is going into summer, and that's the most chaotic time for a kid's director. And I was like, let me take some of the stuff off your plate. Because
Thank you.
honestly, once summer advertisements and things happen, comms kind of takes it. You know what I'm saying? We did all the advertising work, and now all the things are happening. So,
Right.
so we can kind
It's
of
an
sit
ebb and
back
flow
and,
for sure.
and watch. And so, yeah, VBS week will be crazy because we'll take pictures and stuff. But other than that, so I was like, let me take over. So, yes, I'm excited about today. I will say I have just a mini rant. So there is a show that I watch called The Circle. It's not edifying. Okay. Like Jesus is not honored in this show, but it's a reality show. And what's cool about it is they keep people in different rooms. And so there's no like gross parts. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes reality shows, the relationships get kind of inappropriate, but they're literally secluded for the entire duration of the show. So it's just talking by text or whatever. That's the experiment. I applied to be on this show. I got very far in the process. I don't know if I've told you this.
Mm-hmm.
I did the interview. I did the Zoom. They sent me to Netflix executives and I lost. I did not get cast. I am watching the season and I have discovered that one of the cast members is just an AI bot. So I literally lost a job to AI because I should have been on that show, and one spot was reserved for an AI bot that's like interacting with people and trying to trick them.
So they don't know that this is a bot.
No. So
are they picking up on it?
No. So they're texting back and forth or whatever. And then so part of the show is they tell them at a certain point, like, hey, one of you in this game is AI. Who is it? And they pick the wrong person. Like, they don't know who it is.
They picked the wrong person. That makes me so sad.
But I lost my job to AI. I could have been on that show, but they had to have a spot.
Well,
I'm sure
get
I
in
was
line,
one
Justin.
spot.
Get in line.
I know, I feel like I'm the first person to
I think you were
this.
I think that's the list is going to be long and numerous.
But I was very bummed out about that. But I'm over it.
It's so sad to like hate something so much because AI is going to take so many jobs, and to love something so much because I love to use AI in so many ways now.
I use it a lot.
I get it. But I will say this, I'm not using it in any way that I would pay someone else to do it that I can afford.
That's true. You're just giving it. Yes.
I'm like, can you help me save about 48 minutes right now and do this for me?
I will say this. If you follow any of our social media accounts, you see a lot of AI captions. That's for sure.
For me, I had to like do this really big report, but it needed to be done in Spanish.
What?
And in the past, you would like get someone to help you translate it and but I popped it in. It came out Spanish.
Wow.
I checked with someone who spoke Spanish. They checked 1 minute. 1 minute.
Wow.
Spanish, like totally revised.
Where are you getting Spanish reports? What is your job? What do you do?
What is your job, Jennifer?
Understand.
What is this business? Well, so like you, I'm so sorry you were replaced by AI. I think you would have been a fun character.
I'm so sad about it.
Well, we get you in our circle. So we're excited about that.
Circle.
I don't have very many rants today.
Okay,
I don't have one loaded up other than Andy. I do want to make a comment about the weather.
Okay.
It's over.
I'll hear it.
We're there.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So we're stepping into the warm
outside.
part. And there's a sadness to it. But Andy goes, Andy said that we talk about weather so much that he's like, I think you guys are now known as a weather podcast.
You know, that's fair. That's fair. I feel like we've taken a little bit of a break, but dude, it is hot. It's hard to talk about it.
Like, oh.
Well, see, me and Maggie, today was one of the first days we walked out and our glasses fogged up. That's when we know it's serious. It's like, okay, the humidity and the heat is here. Because as soon as we walk out, me and Maggie, our glasses fog up.
Well, along with the heat of summer comes a ton of time with our kids and our youth on different trips and experiences. That's why I'm so excited about our guest today. I think it's going to be a very cool conversation. And I have to say, Justin, you're the one that came up with the idea.
Yes. Ashley is a returning guest. So this is Ashley Miksch, and we're so excited to have her.
Ashley Miksch.
You got it.
She works.
I'm proud
Can
of
you
you.
just not pretend on the show that I already got it right
You
and
did. You
go
did a
with
great
it?
job.
All right. So
Supportive
Ashley
team here.
is one of our student ministry associates.
Yes.
She works with the girls, and she also works here on the West 2 campus for the most part.
Kind of everywhere.
She also, exactly, disciples kids constantly throughout the year. And we brought her here to talk about the summer.
Yeah. And not just like, this is what you can sign up for, but like, what is the summer's purpose and how can parents better utilize the time they have with kids at home or utilize the special activities that we provide through our campuses. But yeah, Ashley's been on the show before, and I was honestly just looking for an excuse to get her back because she's so interesting.
She's really great on the show. I have to agree with that. Ashley, tell us a little bit. How long have you been with us now?
It's going on 3.5 years. Gonna be 4. So
Wow.
I know, professional.
You're seeing your kids grow up. Now you're seeing your little kids grow up. You're sending them off to college.
I know.
Mine being one of them.
Yes, Olivia Dennis, close to my heart.
And then, so you guys are getting ready for kids stuff is super busy during the summer. The only group that we look at and think we're glad we're not them is the student ministry. So
listen, no one works harder than kids and students in the summer. Like no one works harder than these teams. And so y'all, if you don't work at a church, you don't understand. Like these teams, and I think this is nationwide. I don't think there's a kid.
I think it is every children's and student team.
Yes. That is working hard. So I did want to talk about, first of all, like, thinking back on as a leader and also as a participant before we jump into it, like, what are some of your favorite summer memories of being at a camp or at a mission trip or at a VBS or whatever, either as a leader or as a participant or as both?
For me right now, currently as a leader, one of my favorite events is middle school camp. I don't know if they're just like hungry and ready to either just get out of the house, or they have so many outlandish questions, which I really appreciate because the filter's not there. And I just love that they're not afraid to just ask us things or talk about just like the most wildest things. And they're trusting us with our wisdom, even like the most ridiculous culture context kind of questions. And I just love it. Like I don't stop laughing with middle school kids. I know sometimes middle school students might get a bad rep, but I just think it's incredible. I love it. It's like my favorite thing to do.
I've told the story before, but camps like with kids is just extended hangout time in a safe space. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's fun things to do. You don't have to worry about kids getting rides to and from things. Like there's plenty of adults around. Like it's a safe space. And so I love that extended hangout time as a student pastor when I did that. I think I've told the story before, but I want to share it again. There was a moment where it was like day 3 of camp. And we're all hanging out. One of the best things is hanging out in the bunk room. Like, you know, like you just chat and hang out with the guys. You're with the girls, obviously. But we're about 3 days in and we're just hanging out. And this, you know, one of these kids just casually comes up and he's eating pizza, like eating a slice of pizza. And I was like, where did you get that pizza?
Where did you get the pizza?
And he goes, I brought it from home. I was like, 3 days ago? Like there was no refrigeration, no cooler. I was like, you have to refrigerate pizza. He's like, what? Like, and he was halfway through the slice, and I think he finished it. I don't think he cared, but he brought pizza from home. And we're a full 3 days into camp, and he's just like, it was his afternoon snack that day.
You know, I'm a lot like Ashley in that I love the time that is unstructured, that you're just hanging out with them, and they are just telling you crazy story about their lives, and you have time to listen. Yeah. You have time to ask questions, because normally in programming, you're needing to get the lesson across, get them back in groups, get them on focus. Mm-hmm. But when you have 30 minutes to walk them to the pool and you're listening about their friend Winnie that got this new towel, and it's saying, you know, and it's all of these details, you can really get into it and listen. Yeah. And I love it because you're really getting to tell funny stories. And then as funny things happen through the week, you got recount them with each other, and it just becomes hysterical, and you're all laughing so hard. And I love that time because and we only get that when we go to spend the night camp with them. Right. When we go to a
VBS is like go. VBS
is go. Keep moving. Oh, are you enjoying your day? You like your tea? Or like, you know, I like your craft. Oh, you want to hear more about Jesus? Let's sit down. Let's talk about that. Yep. But at camp, you're just chill, and you get to hear so much about their lives.
My daughter is going for the first time, so I'm eager.
We are taking Maggie
to hear how that goes.
Well, you're welcome to come. We need one more male.
I'm busy that week, but I'm really busy that week.
Well, as you were saying with the funny stories, being an active listener, they start to see you trust them, and then they start opening up even deeper about other stuff. And those are sweet moments that you get to share with them, and that's like so invaluable.
It is. I do think it's the most fertile ground of their heart, because it's outside, because that's when you really get to start to share the lessons. Yeah. You can either share about your faith or what you've learned in the Bible or what you've learned that day. And there's just this moment, and they're really listening, and they're taking it in, and you're like, this is really cool.
Yeah. Well, if parents have kids going on trips or any of our activities this summer, like for me, I always struggled with coaching parents on how to unpack what they did. You know what I'm saying? Like when we get, you do all these incredible things, you know, VBS is awesome. The camp is awesome. You as a leader see all these big life changes. I don't think parents always get that report when they get home. You know what I'm saying? I don't think. So what are some things that both parents of children and parents of students can do to kind of get to the bottom of what their kid experienced that week, or that, you know, this is for VBS, this is for camp, whatever it may be, so that they can learn more about what actually happened in the life of their student.
You go ahead, Ann.
So you're saying as a follow-up from camp?
Yeah. So once they get back, because, you know, you say, how was camp? It was good. You know, like they're exhausted. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you do to get to the bottom of like, hey, what did God do this week? How did you, well, that sort of thing.
Right. I think something that's very valuable at first is like, you should know, obviously, your kid and what they're passionate about. So something even little about camp that, you know, they love running around playing games. Like what games, like ask intentional questions that you know they're passionate about, because that first gets them talking. And then when they kind of get that excitement going, then like, oh, and then this happened and this happened. And you never know, honestly, what they're going to say, especially because they're exhausted and tired. But it's just valuable to listen to them and see where they're going in the conversation, observing it and see, okay, are they too tired? Let's table this and just see how they felt about it. And just be very specific about your questions and try not to be too corny about it, or, just like, because sometimes, it's a natural response to parents, like,
Right.
oh, okay, mom, dad, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it's
Right.
just like, know what they love, because I'm not sure all the other questions you might ask, but what's so essential with their faith and growing is also the relationships that they build. And so if they met somebody like, oh, who'd you meet? Oh,
Yeah.
you met Derek. What was his story?
Yeah.
What's his background? What was it like for him being there? Prepare them to be others focused before camp, so that they're focused on others versus just themselves. Because a lot of times when you go to camp, you're like, what am I going to get out of this and all this?
Right.
But to focus on others. And so then they might get excited to talk about their new friends.
Yeah.
And in that, talk about how they share their faith with their friends.
I'll say this with teenagers too, not so much with children, but most students will have a phone with them on these trips, which I hate phones. I hate how they distracting they are, but at the same time, students can take pictures of what they're experiencing. And to
Right.
me, that's an easy guide for how to talk to them when they get back. Be like, hey,
Right.
show me some pictures of what you did.
Yeah.
And then start asking, well, who is that? What were you doing in this picture? What was that about? I think that can prompt a conversation that's less invasive to them and more of like, hey,
Right.
just describe this picture. Let me see some of your photos. I'd love to see what you did this week.
Right. I do. I agree with Ashley. First of all, I think they come home pretty exhausted. The last 2 trips Olivia's done, she came home, sobbed in the car, and talked about how she didn't want to be back.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's really fun for a parent.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think rest. If they're completely exhausted, let them rest. But I think that the conversations for us, especially with children, it's like, what was the favorite thing you did during the daytime? And what do you remember liking about it at night? Or
Right.
if you could tell the leader to change something, what would you have changed? Or did you guys learn any Bible stories or characters? And I like you said, what you're passionate about, asking those things. But I find that opinion questions tend to, like, what'd you guys learn? How'd you like camp?
Yeah.
Were the counselors nice? It's that's so general.
Yeah.
Right.
Or it could be,
Specific.
what was your favorite thing about your counselor? It's something that might lead them to more of a specific answer than these very generalized. How was camp?
Yeah.
How'd that go? And some kids can verbalize for days on a question like
Right.
that, but a lot of kids don't. They're like, it's good,
Right.
So, but I think it's so important to ask them those questions because it's a huge deal. And the things that they experience, and especially what they saw together, what they experienced with each other, is so meaningful to talk to parents about, debrief a little bit about. I think it's so powerful.
I love what Ashley said about preparing them to be others focused before they go. So that leads me to ask the question about prepping for these. So if your child or student is already signed up or is about to sign up for one of these week-long experiences, what are some things you wish all parents would say to their teenager or their children before they walk in to this thing? Besides, like, please take a shower twice at least. Like, what do you want kids and students
Moms.
to know going in from their parents?
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, I think just help them, prep them to be like others focused. How can you serve others? How can you see God moving in other people's lives? Because a lot of times, again, we go to camp and you're like, oh, what am I going to get out of it? Like, how much fun can I have? But it's like, really, like, what about other people? We're here to serve others and get to know people and their stories and how God's actively moving. Because sometimes you can get stunned in your own growth and not see God actively moving in your life. But when you go to camp, there's like a very like vulnerability that happens when you're at camp, and just to focus on others and serve them and care for them, and just prep them with those kind of conversations. Like, how can you go about doing that?
Yeah, brainstorm about what they can do. Because I think saying being others focused, for many students, they'd be like, yeah, great, I get it. And some will be like, what? Like,
exactly.
you gotta brainstorm ways to do that with them.
I think with kids, and a lot of that being others focused, I think is so wise. It could be, I want to hear about how you made sure that everyone was included. I want to hear how you made sure that nobody was alone, or that nobody got left out. I would love to hear some of those stories.
Yeah.
And so if you're kind of prepping your kid for what you'd like to hear, I'd like to hear that you've learned about some Bible characters, or that you learn a little bit more about Jesus. Like, I can't wait to hear those things. And it really does kind of prep your child to be like, oh, I better come back with some of this.
Yeah.
And so I think that pre-warning of, hey, these are the things I want to hear coming back, might help set the tone. So I think that's really wise.
Yeah, like during mealtime, like sit by somebody different and find out 3 things about them and like what's your favorite Bible character. Just kind of like make conversations and prep them with conversations to be had at the table, because that's also around food is a sweet time to just be honest.
I do think too, especially for children and they're going off, sometimes it's one of their first experiences, is to really have a process that you walk through your child with when they're very upset or they're hurt or they're a little homesick or they're worried. A process to like kind of step through it. Not that they have to be fully ingrained in this process, but to sort of think about what's happened. What are we going to do to get through it? Let's take some deep breaths. Like, what do you think might happen if you get a little homesick? How do you think you might make that better? Who can you talk to if you get a little homesick, or if you're a little nervous at night? What kind of conversation do you think you can have? And sort of prepping them with some tools before they go, some conversation ideas, hey, we're going to pack this little notebook for you. I've put some little notes in there. And if you're missing us, just read your little note. Know that we're thinking. Of course, a note like that would have wrecked me. But just like some preemptive thought. Right. So it's not a shocking feeling.
Right.
I remember I was from Laurel, Mississippi. This was a population of like 25,000. And I went to New York City and I was broke. I'd never been in a city that big. It was so overwhelming. And then when we got involved in I was exhausted. We got involved in the ministry. I was so overwhelmed. And I'm like an older kid and I did not expect any of these emotions. And I didn't really know what to do with them. And I ended up just like sobbing and being probably over emotional, but I didn't know, hey, you're going to be seeing something you've never seen before. You're going to see populations you've never been around before. And so to have a parent realizing, man, these are some of the things they're going to experience. Let's go ahead and have a discussion about that. So that when it does happen, they're like, why am I never cry at noon on a Monday. Why am I sobbing?
Right.
And I think too, processing different fears you might have. How can we pray over them beforehand?
That's great.
Actively certain things, just saying and speaking the truth out loud. What does God say about this? Whatever fears or, unmet expectations could come about, like pray over it and prepare their hearts.
Sure. And what are you going to do if they don't have anything that you like to eat?
Yeah.
When you get in the line and it's like, let's say hot dogs, what are you going to do if it's not something you really like to eat? What are some options that you have? And have that conversation with their kid when they come and they're like, oh no, I'm so tired and dirty. And now they don't have anything I like to eat.
Yeah.
And it's being able to really talk through that with your child.
Yeah. I also want to know a little bit, you made me think this preparation or whatever. What are your opinions about parents
going on the trip?
No, making kids that don't want to go to something, go to something. So like a lot of times we let kids dictate their summer, like, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I would argue that a church activity is so valuable. It's something that maybe you should think more about that. So do you think it's okay? Do you think that's weird? Like, is there a line? Is there a way to feel out whether it's like they really don't want to go or they're just like putting their, like, do you understand what I'm asking?
I've seen this go both ways.
Yeah.
I've seen it go both roads. I've seen a kid who didn't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to be here. I hate it here. I hate it here. Finally, a mom had to come pick them up at camp. Wow. They were just miserable. And we tried everything. We tried everything. Yeah. And it just wasn't going to work out.
Right.
And then I've had kids who are like, we were really nervous about coming. I didn't really want to come. We had, something else planned. My parents, but this has been the best week of my life. Yeah. I've had the most incredible time. I'm so glad I came. I don't know, Ashley, what do you think?
That's really hard because obviously it depends on your relationship with your own child and knowing what's good and how they should be challenged in something and that you know that there is going to be success. Obviously, if you're leaning into the Lord and praying over their hearts to be softened towards that, I would just be doing that over and over again because God is the one who's going to soften someone's heart. It's a spirit moving. Right. But you also don't want them to be bitter and angry and resentful if they're being forced, because even in the church, we should not force people. We have free will, but it's just being wise and counseling, getting people to counsel you in this and how to lead your child out and the best with that they can handle.
True. I think with children and with teens, it's all about who's going to be there as a friend for them.
Right. Who's
going to, like, are they going to have a buddy? Are they going to have someone they can talk to? If they don't have a child that's close, another teenager that's close to their same age, and put them with an adult that they have a connection with. Right. And that even happened with Olivia. There were trips that she would go on and then her best and only friend was Ashley. And so I was so thankful for Ashley. And so it's like making sure that leader knows, make sure Ashley or
Right.
the leaders know, hey, they're a little nervous about this. They don't have any close friends coming. Can you guys just look out for them? And
Yeah.
with kids, it's like, what are you going to be doing?
Right.
What will they be doing at camp?
Right. The
And
unknown is hard.
It's hard. And
Yeah.
being away from parents is hard for them.
Yeah.
So
I just saw a lot of teenagers. The excuse was, well, I don't know anybody going. I don't want to go. And I was like,
sure.
well, do you understand that once you go, you'll know a lot of people? Like, especially
Yeah.
for people who are new to our church, I think it's scary because like, well, I don't know anybody. But like the fastest way to know somebody is going on a trip. And so I do agree that it's like, well, you don't want to make everybody go. Like you can't force somebody. But at the same time, I think there's part of it where parents need to think, is this something valuable enough for my kid that I need to like find a way to convince them to go? And it may be, hey, I'll give you this reward just for going. You know what I'm saying? Like, which is a little bit more, they have some, they have some play in that.
I
But-
will say this. I'm going to interrupt you in the
Go
middle
for
of
it.
your sentence. We have a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Uh-huh.
And I think that God can let us know
Oh, right.
if this is not the trip.
Oh, sure.
And I think that our like praying about it, God, will you give me a peace about this? Should I, and I think we can sense his hand leading.
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
able to look at trips and be like, and thought that this is not going to be a win for them.
Right.
These are the reasons why this is going to be a hard.
Wait, is that trips they wanted to go to and you told them they couldn't
No,
go
these
to?
are trips they didn't really want to go
Oh,
on.
and yeah.
And I'm just looking at the trip and I'm
Yeah.
like, should we be more?
No, you
should
have
we
to
be
have a
pushing this?
motivation to see the value of it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
But I
I'm
do
not-
think the Holy Spirit is so good at sort of giving this wisdom to us as we're pushing through.
Mhm.
I think with boys too, they'll just throw these guys on trips and they're so
Yeah.
sweet. These poor kids. I'm just like,
Yeah.
how did this happen to me? But a
Mhm.
lot of times those are like
Yeah.
life-changing
Yeah.
trips for these kids.
That's what's
Right.
hard. I think you're both correct in that it's like, man, you're gonna know your kid. I guess I'm just trying to get parents to think outside the box and don't just let your kid dictate everything you do in the summer.
Oh, sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like,
I agree.
and it may be the shorter things. It may be, the things we do in town as student ministry, trying to get them to go to those things first. But
Right.
what is the strategy for these trips? I think sometimes parents looking in may not understand why we do this. Like for us, it's like, hey, we get a week without our kid. It's great. They're entertained. They're with their friends. Like I think parents get that part, but like as a larger strategy in ministry, like why do we do big summer events? Why do we do these things? What are we hoping will happen with our students and our children in these activities?
Well, obviously, a key thing is we hope to strengthen their faith or even figure out their faith. And so with that, asking the hard questions for themselves. And the thing is, though, when you go to camp, you break down a lot of walls, and that leads incredible small groups when you come back home, because sometimes people don't always feel comfortable in their small group because they don't know the people. And when it's every day, like or every Wednesday and Sunday is the only times you're seeing these people, it's really hard. But when you go to these summer events, you actually get to bond with them, especially when you're servant minded or you have a mission in mind and there's this bigger goal. There's no longer comparison about like, oh, what school you go to or how each other look, but like, no, we have this goal to serve together. And there's a lot of walls that are broken and there's like this really good bond and unity. And it's so valuable to build that up and then carry that on through the semester. And it's so powerful because we can see people from different backgrounds or different social, statuses, and they get so close. And it's so key for us, even just to see the trust that is built. And then there's vulnerability. So they have a safe place to ask the hard questions about God and strengthen their faith. Because sometimes at camp, there might not always come back with some spiritual high or spiritual conversation, but that does not mean that the Spirit isn't moving and that the Lord's not planting something. It's these relational moments that are so key because see, God knows the bigger picture that's happening. And I know in the moment we get caught up and we want to hear the right answer and all these different things, but God has got us. If we're praying and we're seeking these students out, it's very valuable. Any moments at camp. And so that's like a huge win for us when we see kids coming on these trips and growing in their trust with one another.
Well, I think she nailed it. That's a great. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's about getting them to slow their life down enough to be able to really reflect on their spiritual life, to become knowledgeable about spiritual habits on a daily basis, to be able to have great conversations with friends about who Jesus is in a camp where we're discussing it all week. And a lot of times, especially in Houston, I mean, we're in these schools where there's incredible diversity and we really celebrate that. But a lot of these kids don't have a big group of Christian friends. They're in a very, very diverse culture, race, socioeconomic, and religious.
Yeah.
And so to have that time away where everybody's just celebrating who Jesus is and their walk, I think is so important to them. And then it bonds them. And then they want to come back because they have these close friends. They want to come back to church and they want to be part of this body. And so I think it's so powerful for them.
So what about just summer at home? So let's not talk about trips, but like suddenly you have children and students that don't have homework. They don't have even a structure every day that's the same. What can parents do with this extra time over the summer to be strategic in some way, whether it's relationally with them or spiritually or whatever it may be? What are some ideas that people can do with their kids or their students with the pause that they kind of take on education, stuff like that in the summer?
Well, one thing, you can participate in our weekly hangouts with student ministry because we have something Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Okay.
So they can participate. Mondays, we'll go to like main event or go to bowling or Cinemark. Tuesdays, we have lunch together. Parents are more than welcome to hang out with us. Tuesday nights is high school hangout. We talk about hot topics, how to counter culture with scripture and truth. Wednesday night is Wednesday night rally. Fun, snow cones, just hang out with us. We'll have like small groups and compete with one another, like Bible knowledge or just silly culture stuff. And then Thursday's open gym. So just have your students be part of the church, whatever that looks like, our events. But another thing I think would be sweet is for parents to ask their kid, like, hey, what's something you want to do this summer as a family? Like choose something for us to do. Or as a family, each of you do a PowerPoint presentation of something you think would be fun and you'll all present it to one another and prove your point. And then in those moments and those journeys together, see God moving and how you can bring God in everyday conversation, right? The classic, like, look at God's nature, like, look how creative he is. Look what he did. There's strategy in God's, like what he did and what he made on purpose. Or if you go to the museum, like, oh, the Bible is historical. There's wisdom in this, and talk about the prophets or talk about, just bringing up God in everyday moments. It doesn't always have to be like quiet time in the morning at 7 or Devo at 5, but bringing God into every moment with your child, jumping on the trampoline, do a worship song, sing together. I think it's very valuable to also have a Devo time and be strategic.
Jennifer is falling apart over there. Just knocked her drink flat out.
I just kicked my own drink
You
over.
just stained my carpet again.
Wish I could say it was the first time. I think those are all so good. And with children, you're looking at a summer slide. They call it the summer slide, where they forget all of their school skills. They just sort of, their brain melts a
become
little
feral
bit.
a little bit.
I think the power of the summer is making learning about God fun, making it engaging with them, and then coming up with you've got to have a plan. There's got to be some sort of a plan.
Right.
And then maybe instead of going to the Nature Discovery Center, instead of going to just check it out, maybe you're going with a purpose to see, hey, today I want to really focus on how creative is God? How do you see creativity through what we go visit? And ask more open-ended questions and then allow them to go through an experience with a different lens.
Yeah.
And so once they get out, it's like, wow. And I bet the next time they go to a place like that, they're reminded of the creativity of God. So I think as you're doing your routine, think about a way to look through it through a God lens that gives them a little bit more reflectiveness of who God is, who they are in God, how we have a relationship with him, any of those steps and stages, but it has to be planned and it has to be thought out. And also, I think too, like focusing on things of how, like the 9 fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, having them talk about what that means to live in that. How do we see those fruits? How do we get God? How do we plant that in Jesus? How do we see those fruits played out in our everyday life? Are we identifying that? When we're on the road, like during the school year, it's just so fast, right? It's survival. Do this, now this, now this, now get this, get washed, get to bed. And you don't have time to be reflective of your daily actions. But in the summer, you may have a little bit more time to be able to identify that. You know what? I really saw a fruit of the Spirit on you.
Yeah.
I saw gentleness.
Yeah.
And boy, that comes from God. That comes from your time with God. And so anyway, I think that's some of the things I would think about through the summer.
Is there anything else in regard to like, encouragement or something you want to share about our summer or about summer with kids before we just kind of wrap up?
Well, I wore my VBS shirt. We're still accepting registrations for VBS, and we're also still accepting volunteers.
Yeah.
So we would love to go on the website, check it out.
So
Please
at
volunteer.
cityrise.org/summer
Yes.
Is where all that information is. There also a volunteer link there, or is that more of like a
there's
secret
also a volunteer.
Genius? Okay.
Nope, it's on there as well.
Okay.
Also, if you have a preschooler, you can bring your preschooler to VBS if you will also volunteer.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different avenues for that.
Mhm.
You can still sign up for Super Summer stuff.
Yeah.
We have other fun things going on.
Yep.
It's going to be an amazing summer.
Yeah. And I would say most of y'all's trips are closed, but VBX is a big thing, right?
Yeah, we have VBX, which is the same time frame as VBS, but it's at Cross Point instead of Westview.
Yeah. So what is for those that don't know? Because I think sometimes we name things and they don't explain it. So like VBS and VBX, like for maybe someone who doesn't know what VBX is, like what is it?
It's basically a time. It's probably I'm trying to think of how to describe it. I mean, it's very similar, I guess, to maybe VBS because the whole idea is for teenagers, I guess, preteens. But we kind of have worship. We have speakers. We have a lot of fun activities, games outside, wild stuff. It's just really fun. And again, it's relational. And it's just very interactive and you just get really close to a lot of students.
I'll say this. So just in defense of me telling parents to make their kids do the things they don't want to do, which is, it's not, I don't mean that. I will say VBX is one of those things to say, try it for a day. You know
VBX,
what I'm saying?
100%.
It's like, hey, just try it. And if you hate it the first day, I will not make you go the rest of the week.
I definitely think local things you should encourage.
Right.
Like you would kind of be more like, do this. Versus if it's like out of the country or out of the state.
Go on this 2 week long
That's a
trip.
little bit scary. I can understand you wanting to pray and be discerning that.
I think the local stuff is
local stuff is definitely something.
I think no parent should be ashamed about making their kid come to church event
No,
once or twice
they
this summer
always
here in
like
town.
end up having fun.
They do.
Very rarely do we have a kid that doesn't enjoy it.
But that's the good thing about VBX is not only if you don't like it the first day, you don't have to come back. If you love it, you can bring friends the next day.
Exactly.
You know,
we
it's
just keep adding you on.
VBS is the same way.
Same way.
You can
come
walk right
anytime.
up and be part of it.
And our theme is Olympics, by the way. So
okay.
there's
How
also some
timely.
skits. So
Oh, wow.
It's gonna be fun.
you're in
Cool.
luck.
Jennifer, I prepared everything about this interview, but the final question.
The final question.
Do you think you have one? Off the dome?
Off the dome. Let's see. Okay, thinking about your summer experiences at camps
Okay.
and at I don't know, whatever you did growing up, like with your own churches, or what is one memory that you're like, I would go back and relive that any day.
Oh.
This one memory of camp life,
Okay.
I
you
thought it was
would
gonna
go
be
back
embarrassing, but it
and
wasn't.
live every day.
You know, I didn't grow up in a youth group and I didn't grow up really in a church doing the activities every week because I saw my dad over the weekend. I was like a halftime kid, so it was hard to make friends. But when I turned 16, I worked at a church camp for full summers. Like we were teenagers and we moved in and we lived there and we worked for the full summer. And I would say, like, as hard as that went, we worked 13-hour days every day. So like it was wild. Like honestly, probably illegal. But the growth I felt spiritually by facilitating ministry was wild because I didn't do any of the fun stuff. I was lifeguarding and cleaning toilets and serving food. And I would wash my hands most of the time after I cleaned the toilets. But
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I learned
sweet.
so much about serving in that. And so I made such deep friendships that, you know, it was wild that like in high school, you see your friends at school for a little bit or in your extracurricular activities, but we like literally lived with our friends for the summer. Like it was a wild, unique
That's
experience
really
that it shaped who I was. And so there's not a specific memory of it, but like those 4 summers I did that was truly life-changing for me, like working behind the scenes to help people, you know, get to know Jesus and to not think about, you know, all their drama and just like focus on God that week. Like it was really cool.
That's cool.
I didn't really go to a lot of camps either, so I don't really have any.
What did you do in the summer? Like what do people who don't grow up in the church
story.
do?
I know, right?
What did I do? I don't even, the memory, I don't even know. I remember running around outside with friends, you know, and like, you know, I don't know, just exploring the woods and finding animals and picking up trash. And
So did you never go to any sort of camp?
one time I
ever?
went to a Methodist camp.
Yeah.
And I remember you were bunking with a bunch of random people. And I remember not using the bathroom because I was
It's
really
terrifying,
scared. to stink it up. Sorry. Vulnerable state of mind.
So you wouldn't
So
let
I
that memory
remember
go.
at one point, it was like the third day, and I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And it was like a movie night or something, and everyone was out, like everyone was far away. So I just ran, like you weren't supposed to leave the area. Oh, I found a way. I ran so fast and found a random
There you
bunk,
go.
and I
Take care
just
of it.
finally did it. And I was like, thank you, Lord. But I just remember being like, I hate camp.
That's
in
so
that
funny.
moment. It was just, and so I just, and then the toilet wouldn't flush. So then
Oh, wow.
those
Of course.
people got a little treat and I left. And it wasn't my,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's not the best story.
Well,
It's okay.
yeah.
It's good enough. It's good.
Oh, you can.
So it's just a memory you had, I guess, not
For
a memory you want to
me-
relive.
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
Right.
all I think about is any camp experience slightly was like bad things.
Wow.
That's so wild.
That's not a very
But now
spiritual
you're
thing with me.
now you're redeeming that for a whole new
Right.
generation.
Yes.
No one I went to a big church. It was a very big church. It's still a big church in Pensacola, Florida, Olive Baptist Church. And we would go to youth camp every summer. And we went to this place called Camp Lee. It was around Gadsden, Alabama. And it was beautiful and it was perfect. And I remember going there every summer and I just remember, and I know that we phrase it the camp high because you've just pulled away everything except this time with Jesus, and you would do quiet times, and you just, that's where I got called to go into ministry, was at this camp. And I remember they had this huge hill, and when it would rain, everybody would slide down this entire hill.
Wow.
And it was so fun. But if I could go back and relive something, I think I'd go back to Camp Lee and those quiet times and those times where God called me. It's really funny now because looking back then, God kept saying to me, you just need to love people more. I want you to learn to love people. And at the time I thought, well, that's kind of random. And now, like as a full grown adult, like I get, it does come back to God wanting us to love and love well. But as a teenager, I was like, okay, love people. Sure, I can be
What does
nice.
that look like?
But it's wild that God was already leading me in these really deep ways of maturity, even as a teenager, that I wouldn't realize until so much longer later
Right.
after. But it was, if I could go back to one of those summers, I wouldn't even have the energy now to make it to like, I think no, I don't even think I could get to the cabin now. It was so far up in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. They would have to like drive me around by the bus and dump me off everywhere.
Do you have a golf
Golf
cart
cart?
at the camp you go to?
I do for the summer, and they all make fun of me because I ride around with my golf cart, picking kids up, taking care of them.
that's
Yes, it's fun.
That's great.
This
As
has been
you
a great
should.
conversation, Ashley.
Yeah.
I'm so
Thanks
glad you
for having me,
came.
guys.
Justin, this is a great show. If
Feel
Andy
honored.
tells me he likes the questions better than the usual ones, it's going to be
I don't intend to take over questions in the future, but it was very much, I want to interview both of you as like the children's person.
I think
and the
this has been a
student
great
person.
conversation.
To hear both
Hopefully.
of you.
Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. Justin, tell us.
Yeah, if you want to register for anything left this summer, it's cityrise.org/summer. That's where all the things for kids and students are located. Once again, there's plenty of room for our local stuff that's coming up. Some of the trips obviously are closed because we plan those pretty far in advance. But the local stuff is available, and we'd love for you to sign up to be a part of that. VBS and VBX are our first big things, so we'd love for you to check that out. If you enjoyed this, or if you know someone in our community that's looking for things for their children to do or their students to do this summer, please send this to them so they can hear a little bit from actual adults who are going to be on these actual trips.
Actual adults.
Yeah,
So
these are the
adults.
ones who are going with our kids and students this summer. And so now you know who's in charge, and we'd love for you to check that out. Send it to people and maybe you get involved. And you can always email us at podcast@cityrise.org if you have people that you think we could talk to.
Good gravy. That's just such a long time
was
with
so
so
good,
much
Justin.
information, right?
Thank you.
You should get paid for
Thank
this.
you.
I know.
It's
He
very
should get paid for
professional.
this. This is such a good volunteer experience for you. All right, everybody. Thank you for being with us. We hope you've had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network based in Houston, Texas. CityRise is a partnership of church campuses, nonprofits, and missionaries devoted to lifting our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information or to find a church campus close to you in the Houston area, visit cityrise.org.